Hey guys, Joe and Rip again, and today we are going to be talking about pool decks because we always have a lot of questions on about what types of decks to use around your pool or patio if you don't have a pool. So what's your favorite, Rip? Do you have like a certain favorite, or does it depend on the situation, or?
100% depends on the situation, the style, budgets, things like that. So for me, I kind of like to pigeonhole into what style we're doing first, and then I'll choose materials from that. So if you're doing something that's really natural, you're going to go more towards flagstone, gravel, river rounds. If you're going more at the other end of the spectrum, modern or contemporary, you're going to do maybe concrete, porcelain pavers, and then more traditional kind of is in between those. And so, like for me, like on the rustic side, on the natural side, I look for more texture. I look for more texture, maybe more colors, more variation, and then as you go more modern, at the other end, it's smoother, it's cleaner lines. That goes with shapes and stuff too. So I wouldn't go with something really rough unless it was an accent on the modern side.
Well, there's a lot of concrete products out there, and probably for the most popular, you're going to get a variation of your tans, browns, or you're going to get a variation of your grays, right? And so you have to kind of figure out whether you're talking about, say, if you're talking about pavers,
So
right? For
so that's
most of
true with us
those.
here, pavers and the flagstone kind of too.
Yeah, and my personal preference is some of the things that are most expensive is not really even my favorite. Like, for example, a lot of people will go with flagstone. Flagstone's a very rustic look. There's only certain pools that will look good with flagstone. I try to talk people away from flagstone, or at least a big amount of it, for a big patio around the pool. And there's a couple of reasons. One is when you have a lot of flagstone, it can become very busy and to your eye, and it's just like, man, that's a lot of stone going on, especially if they're irregular shaped.
Or have lots of color variation.
A lot of color
Yeah.
variations, and I don't care who installs it, over a period of time you're going to have cracks in your grout lines. It may take a couple years, it may take 7 or 8 years, but they will start cracking because that is just a seam of concrete in between. Another stone product is bluestone. Bluestone is beautiful. It is awesome. It's not cheap, but it can get very hot. So if in the summertime when you're walking out, in fact, most bluestone patios we put in, we actually suggest to people to put some irrigation sprays around it. So on hot days, you can just hit a button and to wet the bluestone down. And so to me, those two are kind of on the upper scale price wise, and they're not really even kind of my favorite. And bluestone's great if it's under a covered space, but out in the open sun, it can just get really hot. And as far as like a couple things that's cool is you have travertine is very cool, but that is also, you also need to put that on more of a modern, I feel like, kind of pool. But and when you use,
I don't know. Now we use that French pattern, and
yeah,
I think it can go pretty traditional.
yeah. And we've put it in, and most of the time when there's travertine put in, something like that, usually you do your coping in the same. You have like a bull nose, so that way your coping around the pool would match with a travertine. Where if you did like a paver, most of the time people will put like a flagstone around their pool, and you could also break up that travertine with, the last 2 or 3 years I've been loving to put strips of turf or turf areas.
Oh yeah.
So turf's another pool deck. I've designed decks for people that they did nothing but turf. On there. Any thoughts on your turf?
I do like the banding that you can do with it. So we're working on a design right now where we're going to have a band going right around the pool before the patio. The design's not done yet, but then we're going to use really large slabs, and we don't know if that's going to be concrete or something else. And we're going to have a pattern going through there, but it's not going to be just your normal crisscross here. We're going to try and add some decoration with,
Yeah.
with the pattern.
I tell you, I probably like that better because people don't realize this, but turf can get very hot also.
Yeah, I was very surprised.
Yeah, but if you put it just in strips of more decorations, you're not going to really notice it because it's going to be in small portions. And so, yeah, years ago, the first couple that we did, a lot of is like, I was very surprised because it was some complaints on how hot it was,
Yeah.
and they actually, these particular people I'm thinking about, they actually did come back and put sprinklers around it, but then after that one time, I just let people know it's going to get hot, and you're going to need to put probably a zone of sprinklers around it. But it definitely looks awesome. And when you got so much hardscapes, it kind of breaks things up. If you have basically a beautiful parking lot of travertine, having that little green strips or pieces, it just kind of softens everything up.
I actually like it in the strips from a visual standpoint more than the larger turf areas.
Yeah. Another another thing that's kind of been coming on the last couple of years is Teco Block. That's a concrete product, and it's pretty awesome. We were doing some 3x3s several months ago, as far as, and we drew in like 3x3s and 2x4s, and those 3x3 pieces, they were like 500 pounds. I mean, it took 4 guys to move one, and there was a lot. There was a lot of those pieces. But you can do all kinds of cool stuff.
Is that one where you use the different colors?
Yeah, it's just three different colors. So, and I'll put a picture up here of that, and it was definitely awesome. To me, it was probably one of the prettiest patios when we got done. But it's not cheap. It's probably the same lines with maybe a little bit less than bluestone or a flagstone, but it's definitely more than your regular paver. But you're getting some big pieces, and you can also get that for your pool coping also.
Well, I just like how quickly it goes in.
Yeah.
So I was up in North Carolina for 10 years, and up there we didn't use pavers. Everything was natural stone or concrete or textured concrete. And I come back to Atlanta, and pavers are everywhere. And I was like, what in the world? What are y'all doing?
Yeah.
And then they look pretty good. And that was Belgard pavers, I think was the first ones I was seeing.
Pavestone was my first ones years ago when I was 30 in the 90s, when I was just doing landscaping. We were doing paver patios. When they first came out, we were doing like some multicolored reds and
you gotta be careful on your colors. And
no, that's when they first came out, and that was things do, even on your pool deck. That's the reason it's very important to kind of think things through. You may want to not go too crazy sometimes, because in a few years there's other things that's going to really be, they're going to look old hat. But but even around your pool and your deck and everything with it, it's kind of like the outside of your house or the inside. Trends will come and go, and so you're always going to have to kind of think out of the box a little bit and change things around your pool or your backyard. That's why landscapers stay in business. That's why pool people stay in business. Renovations, redoing yards, is that you're just, but just don't put in something crazy that you might be sorry you might do in the next, 2 or 3 years, there. So any other kind of
20 years ago, I did lots of stamped concrete, so much that we even started a little side company doing just stamped concrete. I will never do it again.
Stamped concrete, that was very, very popular for a long time. Here's the problem, but then over the course of time, you don't really know how something is sometimes, and only time will tell. And with stamped concrete, for one thing, it can get very hot.
It's usually a darker color.
Yeah, you have to do a seal on it. To keep it looking good, you have to put a seal on it. When you put that seal on it, if you have like your concrete driveway, the pores doesn't allow it to get really hot. But when you put a seal over that to cover up those pores, you're just going to keep that heat radiating on the top of it, and it's going to get hot. And then if you don't seal it, it's going to look terrible. It's going to get weathered very quickly.
And in spots, it's not uniform.
Yeah. And then it's concrete. So chances are it's going to crack somewhere.
Sure.
Concrete cracks.
Now, what we did do up in North Carolina, eventually what we did, because that was a less expensive option, and I just refused to do it. And then finally, what we did is we didn't add any color. Well, we did color to the concrete, but we did not do the secondary color, which is the release color, which is in that coat that's slippery. And so it was just monochrome. And then we did, instead of stamping it, I got these big rollers. And we just rolled a texture onto it. And then we came back and cut a pattern into it. And I really liked doing that. Not as much as I like doing pavers and porcelain and all that kind of stuff. But it was, to me, it was another option instead of doing the texture deck or doing the stamped concrete. And it was a fun little thing to do, and I still got the tools. So.
And another option, if it's budget that you guys are worried about, nowadays you can actually get a colored concrete that comes right out of the plant. You can actually, there's a color chart. You can pick out the color that you want, and they mix in the color at the concrete plant, and it could even be a buff color. Just try to do something. And it doesn't even really cost that much more. But do something except for doing the color of your driveway in front of your house. Put in
so
a
because of the
color
temperature
additive.
wise, and because you're starting with a gray product, kind of you stay into like the buffs and then into the grays. There's about, depending on the color chart you're looking at, there's about 7 in there. But you don't want to go too dark because it's going to be hot on your feet, and you can't go lighter than that unless you use white Portland, which is doable. Then you could go ultra white, but there is a cost associated with that for sure.
But try to think about if you do go as concrete route, do some kind of color, do some kind of bands, do something to mix up just having a turnaround driveway around your pool, or on your patio, because I'm telling you, on a pool project, the decking is so important, because realistically, when you walk out of your house, you're going to see more square footage of deck than you are your pool.
Yeah.
And so you want that. I think that's one place where you want to spend a little bit more money. As long as you're spending all the money in your backyard, no matter what type of pool you have, dig a little deeper and upgrade that decking. Because like I said, you're going to have a lot more square footage of that in your vision than you do of pool water, and then you guys that live up north, that you cover your pool, all 4 or 5 months out of the year, you want something nice around that you can still go out there and look at and hang out by the pool, even if it's covered. So,
that's pretty good. We didn't really talk about porcelain pavers too much. That's a lot of modern.
Well, we're not on a time span. So what's your take on porcelain? I think you're more of a knowledgeable porcelain. I think.
So I've worked, where I've been
as far as material wise, you know.
So we've been doing porcelain pavers on several projects in the last year, and we have set them on a concrete base. We've set them on a sand aggregate base, and we've set them on pedestals. So I was a little leery. I wasn't familiar with the product 2 years ago when I first saw it. So I just took one and kind of integrated it into my little walkway, and I didn't put anything under it because they're so thin. I thought they'd be really fragile.
Yeah.
So I put one out there, and at the same time I actually did the white Portland concrete paver just to see what that would do as well. And I just set them on the ground without any sub base whatsoever. They lasted years. They lasted 2 years.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I was very surprised at how hard and durable it really was, and I really liked it. So
do you have to seal though? Because I know a lot of people.
No.
Like when you have even like travertine. In fact, I have this picture where we put it in. There was travertine put down on this job maybe 4 years ago. Went back over there. I don't know. It's just been a few months ago, and just kind of noticed that under their deck, under the covered space, the travertine was one color, and then it starts to fade a little bit as it gets out in the sun. It's a totally different around. So the thing about like travertine, so you do need to kind of think about. Depends on how much sun it gets, but I do feel like to keep that same feel, you're gonna have to seal it. I mean, you got this hot sun that's going to bleach things out, no matter what it is. I mean, it'll even bleach out boulders, right? And so
I'm the exact opposite on the thoughts on sealing.
A porcelain, no, there's certain ones.
No, even on anything, because you're just opening that can of worms of now. Once you start sealing,
I know
you're going to have to keep sealing.
I'm on the fence.
I'd rather not do it.
You're adding a non-maintenance. You're putting maintenance on a non-maintenance item. I get it, and I'm on the fence with it. But that's just an example. If If they didn't have that covered space, you wouldn't even be able to tell. I'm just letting you know, if you have one area it's the same, that it's all undercover, and then you walk out, you're going to see a blend. But if they didn't have the covered space, you wouldn't even really notice it, because it would just bleach out naturally, So,
I don't know what else we got there. We covered that pretty good.
No, but you know what? If you guys got a question, if we kind of missed something out, and you have another product you want us to talk about, or you need some advice, you leave us a comment, and we'll make that in our next little podcast here. And we appreciate y'all listening, and talk to you soon.
Ooh, that sugar sweet, you got what I need. Sipping on the potion, all that good emotion, just my kind of heat. Keep it on repeat, tested by the motion.